So what's happening, y'all? It's me, Troi, and I'm here, of course, with the video. I got my Bruno Mars shirt on. What'd he say? That's the way I like it. I like it, I guess, child. What I'm really about to do is I'm about to put some chili on and sit down and catch up on some Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. It's going to be a self-care night tonight. But before I get into that, I wanted to come up here and talk about the books that I read as it pertains to my previous video where I was sharing the books that I want to complete or in 2023 reading or catching up on. So the books that I'm talking about right now is Hide by Tracy Clark, as well as Fall by Tracy Clark. These are the first two books in her Harriet Foster police procedural thriller series. It's a new series for this author. Her previous series was one where a contemporary black woman private investigator named Cass Rainey's was running through the streets of Chicago solving crimes. So here we are now with a little switch up with an actual police detective, homicide detective, doing all the crime solving. And that is where we're introduced to the character of Detective Harriet Foster here in Hide. And so what we can look at when we look at this character is that she's a character who's in a very dark space. One of the things that she's suffering from is the fact that her teenage son was murdered in front of their yard. Couple that with the fact that she's also dealing and grieving with her ex-partner unaliving herself. You know, that's the term that we use now, right? I hope I got that all right. But the point is that Harriet Foster's in a very dark space, and she's beginning a new chapter within her life, a new chapter within her career, where she's moved on to a different, I think, district or precinct or whatnot, where she's invited to start commingling with her new set of partners, police detective partners and crew and whatnot. And that's the running theme of the book as it concerns her character, is that she's so walled off, so frozen, that she has to slowly, gradually thaw out and warm up to start to find commonalities between her other detective partners, because they're gonna have to work together to solve these crimes. And the crime presented within Hide has to do with this string of young women with red hair being murdered all over the streets of Chicago. So one of the telltale signs that the murder is all connected is that each of the women have a ring of lipstick around each wrist as well as ankle, and that of course is symbolic to the psychology. There's a symbolic component to the serial killer that you'll get into later within the book. Now, with that being said, I just want to say that when it comes to Hide, I think it was a great introduction to the character of Harriet Foster. I loved her. I liked the fact that she was both broody without being angsty, but she was also funny while being snarky, if you will. But one of the things that made me so gravitate towards her voice and not put it down, with the angstiness of it all, is the fact that she was a character who was working on recognizing those things that made her so prickly, so blunt, so withdrawn. She was working on those things. She was speaking with herself and outside of herself on how she can overcome those things, because she had to find a means to move on. And that's of course where she comes into conjunction with many of her partners within a new unit to slowly blossom out of that. So I love that part. But the thing about it is that this is a serial killer thriller, and I'm not the biggest fan of serial killer thriller books, where there's just the predator and the prey. There was moments where the chapters went through different various characters involved on both, not, well, specifically Harriet's side, but involved on the oppositional side, if you will. Who is the operating force over here that's actually doing all the criminal activities. So yeah, I'm really not the fan. When they use the trope of someone smoking cigarettes right outside your neighborhood, right outside your door in your backyard, bending on the tree smoking a cigarette, watching your windows go out, like I'll be like, go. I'm just going somewhere. I don't feel like reading about that. But ultimately, I did enjoy Hide. It was a great introduction, like I said. But let me just say this right here, because I really want to come in here and talk about this. This right here, Fall was amazing. Fall checked all of the freaking boxes. Now, I said that I read all of her Cass Rain-ass books, and here I am in her new series. And I don't like to, and I'm not trying to use the word her best book because I'm not a writer, but this right here, in relative terms, this is probably the best thing that I've read by her. Fall was amazing. And it, of course, is still being led by the character of Harriet Foster. Except in this situation, she is dealing with a string of aldermen being murdered around the streets of Chicago. And that one link that they have has to do with this woman named Marin, who was recently released from prison after being locked up in federal prison for 3 years. She's recently released because she, as an alderman herself, took the fall for some activities that this group have come up with. She's the fall guy. She's the scapegoat. She's released from prison, and so the spotlight is immediately looking at her as the possible killer. But of course, Tracy Clark does a great job of weaving and turning and interspersing different various character chapters to tell a whole different story. Now, with that being said, I almost immediately knew what was really going on here because it's so obvious not to look at one portion of the book, one portion of the suspects list, as opposed to what you can actually see over here. So I already knew what was going on, but this book had checked all the boxes. It checked all the boxes. Number one, from the plot's perspective. One of the calling cards the killer did was leave dimes around the murders. But just from a plot perspective, I love the intricacy in which Tracy Clark wove us from, the police procedural portions to the character of Marin, not only dealing with her troubles with being suspected of these murders, but also her trying to get back on her feet when it comes to her family. All those was woven in. We got to look into some of the aldermen who are surrounding the crimes, and I love the dialogue that Tracy Clark came up between them two, between those that number. We got to even kind of just minutely peek through some of the we'll leave that on the side because I feel like that'll give it away. But I love this book. Number one, the plot. I love the plot. I think it was very good, very twisty, very turny, easy to figure out once the going gets going. Easy to figure out, but just that setup was great. I loved it. It kept me intrigued. Number two, I love the story. When it comes to story, you're looking at that evolution and emotional journey or whatnot of many other characters. Love the story, love the theme. Number three, it had character. I love the characters. They each had their own individual stories. They each told their stories, and they each had some amazing dialogue between one another and banter. And here's the thing that I love the most, and this is not the most intellectual or scholarly term, but one of the number one things that I have to say that I loved about the book Fall was the fact that it was not corny. Okay? It was not corny. And it's easy to find when you go to the bookstores and you see these police procedurals and these thrillers. There's that ominous, the covers, there's this ominous window or this silhouette ubiquitous with a stalker and a thriller. It was not corny. Tracy Clark put her foot into this one. I'm sorry. She really did. No, I'm not sorry, but yes, she did. She put her foot into this one. I really, really was engaged with this book through and through. And it's been quite a while since that. I was invested because I want to know how each of these characters, from the most minute character to Harriet Foster herself, I wanted to know how each of these characters were going to react and respond and evolve or devolve when it comes to the things that they faced throughout the entirety of this book as each murder kept piling up. And I believed in it. I believed in them. I believed in what Tracy Clark was telling me about these characters. I believed she really rounded the story and the characters up. And I loved it. I loved Fall. I spent 3 days. It took me 3 days to read this book. I read it over the weekend and I couldn't put it down. So Fall was a great book. Good job. Absolutely great. I cannot wait till Echo comes out, which is supposed to be releasing next December. I don't feel like waiting that long. So, well, I mean, if I ain't got no choice, I ain't got no choice. But fall was great. And it ended on a fantastic note. And I also need to mention before I close this video out is that Tracy Clark is killing it when it comes to final confrontation scenes. She's killing it. A lot of these authors can't do it like her. She's killing it. Because there's actually some meat to it. It's not just somebody rushing to close the book out. So yeah, I can't wait. I had a good time.